Now, into the ticket office of Disneyland.
Oh boy, let's do this.
Don't think the CIA is going to be trying to hack your second-gen iPod.
I didn't think so. There might have been a lot of illegal music on there. I wouldn't doubt it. But, I mean...
You were supposed to bring death to the flagships, not join them.
Google has found a new way to piss me off.
iTunes is a constant source of embarrassment.
Behind-the-scenes camera crap.
Here, tell us about courage, Phil. Tell us about courage.
I am Nadella. I can't do it anymore without laughing. I was going to do the whole thing. Welcome, everyone, to the Calling All Platforms podcast. I am your host, Wes, and I'm here with Landon.
Hello.
And Caleb today.
Chukung. Oh, no. Sorry. I'm never going to let that go.
No, we're not. All right, I guess I'll let you explain that one, the chukunk.
You know what, listener,
great.
we're that's just a tease. Well, there'll be a little bonus at the end of the episode.
just you wait. It was
just
great.
you wait.
It was fantastic.
We won't explain that then.
And I mean, it's like maybe you had to be there, but I feel like that audio bit is just is going to be great, just regardless of context.
Surprise free at the end. Hey, there's one more thing right there. There you go. And it was from Landon.
Okay.
Oh gosh. Anywho, is this a trick? There's an old school one for you there, Landon.
That was so funny. Like, I did listen to that episode, and that was genuinely amazing. Is this a trap?
Oh yeah, this is a trap.
Anyway,
let's go ahead and let's talk about what's happened this week, maybe 2 weeks, huh? Well, so Gamescom, that is a big thing that happened all this week. And we're going to get to that. But first, we're actually going to be talking about some other things before we get into Gamescom. First thing we're going to talk about Apple and I guess colors. Looking on the list here, we're going to talk about iPhone colors.
Look,
Yeah, Caleb, why don't you take it away on that one?
It's my responsibility in this podcast to bring to the table all of the important news that is happening in the world of Apple and Apple's technology and contributions to the tech space.
When you're here, yes.
Shut up. The past couple of weeks, we're working up to the beginning of September, which is when Apple hosts their event for the reveal of the new iPhone and yada, yada, yada. It's a very hyped up time on all of the Apple news blogs and news sites and stuff like that. There tends to be a lot of discussion about what the new iPhone is going to look like. At this point of the year, we pretty much always have some kind of renders of the new phone. We have reasonably good idea of what the design of the thing is going to be like, as well as what possible hardware features are going to be shipping with it. And just in general, this year's iPhone is going to be the same as last year's iPhone, with maybe slightly rounder corners and some slightly different colors. Yay!
Yay!
So that's pretty much, like, literally in our notes for the podcast listener, I just said, we're now listing iPhone colors as if those are the rumors that will get people excited about this year's phone.
Did it work? No.
No. Nope.
Bingo.
Exactly. It's genuinely quite depressing, and it's okay. I wasn't going to be buying a new iPhone this year because they killed the Mini, and I genuinely may never recover from that. That's the problem is they gave me the perfect iPhone for me, sold it for 2 years, and was then like, nah, you don't matter. And it hurts when they do that. It's not the first time they've done it, to be clear, but gosh dang it. I don't like it. So yeah, that's the Apple news. I'm not excited about this year's iPhone. Maybe they'll blow me away in a couple of weeks when they actually have the event and announce the new iPhone, but chances are not good.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's go ahead and move on here. We're going to go into some Google news. Landon here's got the Pixel 7a parts. We've got some parts to talk about here.
Well, so a couple of years ago, Google partnered with iFixit, so you could buy genuine replacement parts for pretty much any Pixel device that's out that you can get right now, at least on the phone side of things. And the most recent phone to be added to that list is the Pixel 7a. So if you have a 7a now, because it's relatively new, you can, if you already have broken it in some way, shape, or form, because it's possible you could have broken it in the last month that it's been available.
True.
You can now buy genuine parts from iFixit and the tools to fix it yourself if you want to. Or, I mean, you can send it back to Google and try to deal with that customer service nightmare that is always the case. Or just go to iFixit and, if you feel comfortable, do it yourself. They also have instructions on how to do all this stuff. So that can help, or that will help do that. Follow the instructions, listener, because it's generally a good idea, especially when it comes to something you spent, around $400 or more for. So, but yeah. So now that is now available. So that's nice. I like having more options of devices that you can fix yourself. It's very nice.
For sure.
It is. Definitely. Okay, we're going to go ahead and move on here. We're going to get into some Microsoft news. Yes, this was talked about, and this is probably one of the bigger things talked about at Gamescom, but I think this is a little bit bigger than just Gamescom. So we're going to get into this. And because, dear listener, we know that you're so excited to hear about Activision Blizzard and King and deals and mergers and things. So, I mean, we're going to get into it. That's the second biggest exciting thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
No, it's not. But we're going to talk about what's happened. It's been interesting. So to please the UK regulators, Microsoft decided to rewrite a deal where they would sell off the Activision Blizzard cloud license, all of it, Activision Blizzard King cloud licensing to Ubisoft, which means Ubisoft, and they'll do it for 15 years for this deal, and which means Ubisoft would be in control of anything. So they could sell the cloud licensing to other people. They'll just be in control of it for 15 years. We'll start there because I'm kind of curious on Caleb's reaction on this. It's interesting. So, okay, go ahead, Caleb. I want you to take it. What are your thoughts?
I am fine with this. It's very much in keeping with the way that Microsoft has been approaching, particularly the UK and their whole pile of nonsense, where they're like basically just like, look, just tell us what it is you want us to do in order to make this purchase okay, and we'll do it. Like, genuinely, they don't seem to care that much. They just want to close the deal, and I think that they're taking a really long look at this whole thing. They're like, this is something that's going to 100% benefit us 15, 20 years down the line. And so, yeah, we'll sign away something like this for the next 15 years and, probably have provisions in that agreement to give them rights of first refusal after 15 years or something like that. And if they want to keep the licenses or
right.
Stuff like business and contracting, stuff like that. I think that Microsoft has demonstrated that in general, they are really more about just taking the properties from Activision Blizzard and feeding them to their subscribers without doing anything else to people who are not their subscribers. Like, they have put so many agreements in place and so many deals. They're just trying to sweeten the pot for people that are already subscribed to their services and to make the pot that much more attractive to people who might be interested in subscribing to their services. But they're not doing anything to change the status quo for people who are not subscribed to their services, And
Right.
This is just, once again, they're just trying to reassure the regulators that they're not going to do something evil with the ownership of Activision Blizzard. They're just, it's like, we just want to add it to Game Pass, guys. Like, it's not that complicated.
Right.
There's
Right.
nothing that crazy happening here.
I thought it was interesting because at first I was like, well, there is no cloud for Activision Blizzard. So
Right.
it's something that's
Not
not
yet.
existent, right? That they're like, sure, we'll sign that away. But I guess I did not expect Ubisoft, to be totally honest. That came from left field. I was like, where did that come from?
I'll bet like good money that part of the reason for that is Ubisoft is a big company. They have a bunch of money, and they can, they can be like, here, we'll pay you this much for the rights to the cloud, to basically the future cloud development of Activision Blizzard properties. And also Ubisoft is a French company, and France is, I mean, obviously not a part of the UK, but it's not a US company is the key there. And I think that they maybe were trying to go just anywhere outside of the United States with this as like a show to the UK. Like, look, it's not even that we're just like trying to enrich it, stuff within our own borders, sort of thing. It's just, I think that may have played a big part in it, because they could have signed deals like this with companies like, I mean, they've already got a cloud deal with Nvidia, and they could have signed it with like, I don't know, an EA or one of those. Who owns Rockstar?
Isn't that 2K?
No, it's not 2K. Take-Two? It's Take-Two.
Take-Two. That's what
Or they could have signed it with 2K. Like there's a couple of different like large publishers in the United States they could have signed it with, but I think they were specifically looking for somebody outside the US because they're trying to appease foreign regulators, and maybe they thought that if they signed it with somebody outside the US, that would work better for that sort of thing. I don't know.
Yeah. Now, with this appeasing and the UK saying, okay, we will look into this, and it will be, our final decision will be October. Oh my goodness. So, that was the UK. Now that they did this, the EU was like, we would like to actually reopen and look at this deal now that we did that. So I don't know what that means, but they just said they want to look at it more. I don't know if that's good. I don't know if it's bad. Nothing's come other than that. So I'm like, oh my goodness.
Just stop. Just let it end.
It just seems like the UK, it's like, we're going to let this go through, but we're not going to tell you that we're going to let it go through. We're just going to prolong this just to be annoying. And that's exactly what they're doing.
I feel like Microsoft gave them because it's Ubisoft, because technically there is no cloud license for ABK right now. There isn't. No one's. I think this was them throwing them a gift basket, like, hey, you could say you made us do this. Just to prove it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, see, nothing's gonna, like, I don't know. But, I don't know. That's what's happening right now with ABK. And honestly, I wish I was able to just say, guess what, guys? It's done, and let's move on. But
won't that be the day?
Yeah, that'll be. You know what's going to be funny is I don't think people will believe it'll be done when it finally is. I think they'll be like, finally it's done. They're like, no, there's something.
That can't be. There's something else coming. Surely.
Oh, God. So that's what's going on with the Microsoft ABK stuff on there. So we're just kind of waiting on the UK, and I guess the EU is going to look at it again. Okay. So we'll see what happens with more regulation on that. So let's go ahead and move on. We're going to move on over to some general tech. Caleb, you've got some stuff you want to talk about. I'll go ahead and let you say that.
Yeah. Okay. So, listener, this is something that kind of hit every corner of the tech coverage, like the tech media community a couple of weeks ago. And it honestly was kind of a testament to how big the presence of some of the popular tech YouTubers is in the tech space, that this had as much press as it did. So you may have already seen and heard some stuff about this. So Linus Tech Tips, or Linus Media Group, however, I guess the larger organization is Linus Media Group, and it technically kind of includes the entire organization. So the Linus show, right? Linus Sebastian and his whole YouTube empire that he's been building over the past 15 years, came under fire from a different tech empire, much smaller tech empire, to be clear, but an extremely respected tech empire from Gamers Nexus on YouTube. So Gamers
Right.
Nexus has a history of their testing is very rigorous, right? High level or a high degree of rigor in their testing when they are doing stuff. And that's kind of their shtick. That's what they pride themselves on. And as a result, their videos tend to be extremely data heavy and very dry, kind of hard to watch. Whereas Linus Media Group, their videos tend to be much more lighthearted, fast-paced, and fun, entertaining. In the past, that is generally what Linus Tech Tips has been. They show off products, but for the most part, their videos are entertainment. Over the past year and change, however, Linus Media Group has been opening or spooling up something called Labs, right? Their Labs organization. And the idea being that they're going to move much more towards data-driven, highly analytical reviews and coverage of tech stuff. Supposedly, they have been doing so over the past, several months. They've been using the labs to put out, these really data-driven pieces and stuff like that. And as time has gone on, it's become kind of apparent that they are not actually doing much analysis, and their data tends to be kind of suspect a lot of the time. And yet they keep verbally positioning themselves as if we're the new home of highly analytical, very data-driven, reliable coverage in the tech space on YouTube, and other coverage or other sites like Gamers Nexus and folks like Hardware Unboxed and stuff like that have always put more emphasis on highly analytical coverage, took exception to that. Gamers Nexus kind of dug into it and released a video pointing out a lot of the hypocrisy that was evident in the Linus Tech Tips and their other associated channels coverage of stuff. And there were a couple of fairly major missteps that came out through that coverage, such as a very niche water block that was designed to cool both a CPU and a GPU at the same time. And the water block itself was really pretty, machined entirely out of copper, and done on a very small scale by a two-man team, I think. So it's a startup that sent them a prototype of this water block that they want to sell for like $800 or something like that. This is a custom water cooling part that the vast majority of people should not even consider buying. But if you have a lot of money that you want to spend on a statement PC or something like that, then this is definitely something that would interest you. And Linus, on their coverage of it, they tested it with the wrong motherboard or with the wrong GPU. Instead of the 3090 Ti that it was designed to work with, they stuck it on a 4090, even though the company who sent it to them, this little startup of like two guys, was all like, you can put it on 4090, I guess. Technically the holes match up, but we haven't tested it with a 4090 and we have no idea if it's actually going to perform. And it didn't perform because, the tolerances were just ever so slightly off. These things are very precision machined. And so his response to this was not, oh, darn, our testing was bad or whatever. Maybe we should actually test it against the card that is correct and present the data that's actually accurate. He was just like, nah, it doesn't matter whether or not we have accurate data. This is a stupid product regardless of how it performs. And then he doubled down on that, in their live stream show on that next Friday, and then in several forum posts on the Linus Tech Tips forums, and so on and so forth. And then at their big expo, Linus Media Group holds a tech expo, actually, called, what is it called? Oh, I just spaced it. Whatever.
Couldn't tell you.
Their big tech expo that they had 2 weeks ago, they auctioned the prototype off, donated the proceeds to charity, despite the fact that the small startup whose prototype it was had sent them in an email and asked for it back.
Oh, jeez.
So they auctioned the thing off, and now this startup's like, that was expensive, man. That thing cost a lot of money and took a lot of time and effort to make and design and everything. And so now we can't do more additional testing and development on the thing because it's just gone. So Gamers Nexus kind of surfaced all of this saga with this whole thing and then tied it back to just kind of endemic issues with the way that Linus Media Group has been testing stuff and presenting information, and how, in general, the information that they put in their quote-unquote technical reviews of products is not great. It's when it's not just straight up when it's not just straight up wrong, it's actively, like, deliberately misleading. You know, like, instead of presenting the data and then letting the consumer kind of draw conclusions from accurate, reliable data, they were presenting bogus data and then drawing the wrong conclusions for the consumer. And that's a problem when your YouTube channel has over 15 million subscribers and is literally one of the most viewed tech YouTube channels out there. You know, back in the day when Linus Tech Tips was mostly just entertainment content and stuff like that, when it was basically MKBHD, like, MKBHD doesn't go out there and do, like, super analytical performance metric comparison from one computer to another or something like that. That's not their jam. They're out there showing you, like, okay, well, here's a new device, here's how it suits lifestyle choices and stuff like that. And they produce a really well put together, extremely slick and entertaining video as a result. It's advice that is a useful part of purchasing decisions, that you take something like that and combine it with more analytical coverage of the whatever this device is, and then you make your decision. Linus Tech Tips was pretending to be the one-stop shop for all of that. Turns out, is not very good at being the one-stop shop for that. So, Gamers Nexus video dropped. Linus of Linus Tech Tips, who has thankfully just recently, and before this all happened, stepped down as CEO of the company, brought in an actual, like, industry business guy to be the CEO of the company. Timing could not have been better for that, frankly.
Yeah.
Because Linus, just before this dude, like, he had been hired already, and just before he started, Linus went onto their forums, released a forum response to the Gamers Nexus video, in which he basically just got mad at Steve from Gamers Nexus for not turning the other way and just not looking. He didn't really have any reasonable defenses to offer for their bad data or anything like that. And the idea that Gamers Nexus presented, that honestly Linus Tech Tips is focused on producing too much content too quickly, and multiple interviews with tons of their staff say that the one thing everybody at Linus Tech Tips wants to do is slow down their content schedules so that they can actually do their research and make sure that the data is right and stuff like that. And he didn't address any of that at all. He just basically got mad at Gamers Nexus, and then got mad at Billet Labs. That's the name of the folks that made that fancy water block. He got mad at them for not communicating more effectively, and then doubled down on their product being a piece of crap in this post. And
oh my gosh.
It's just, the internet lit on fire. Everybody was like, wow, that was the most tone-deaf thing you could have possibly said in this situation. And LTT actually shut down for a week, missing for the first time a video upload, like a daily video upload. They've been doing that for 10 years plus. And so they finally, they took a week off. Their response was, thanks to their new CEO, to basically, look, we're going to step back. We're going to do a series, like a week's worth of team all hands meetings and that sort of thing, and figure out how we solve these problems that are legitimate problems with our output that were raised by a respected member of the tech community. And they actually came back yesterday with, it's been just over a week, and they're like, okay, here's, they released a video and said, here's all the things that we're going to do to try and make this better. And in general, the response seems to be like, okay, yeah, it's our bad. We got a little prideful. We're going to slow down our video production schedule so that when we produce content that is actually supposed to be data-driven, the data is correct. We've actually reviewed it. And then when we find stuff that isn't correct, we stop the video from releasing, fix the problem, and then release the video, instead of just releasing it and whatever, crap data's out there, it's fine. Right. So that's a good response finally. And I think that a lot of it is thanks to, yes, there is a CEO there now who is not Linus, who does not have Linus's ego, who for, all of his redeeming qualities, Linus Sebastian does have a bit of an ego. And that's good, right? There were also some allegations from former employees of not great work environments and other issues which were not directly addressed in the video because they're under active investigation by the Canadian government. So that's, sorry, not under active investigation by the Canadian government, under private investigation with a report slated to go to the Canadian government afterwards. So it's a private company that is experienced with investigating stuff like this, a third-party impartial source that will sort all that stuff out, and I'm sure we'll hear about that several months down the line. But point is, lots of drama in the tech news space.
Wow.
And the fallout is that, honestly, Linus Tech Tips, as a viewer of Linus Tech Tips, probably just consider their channel to be purely entertainment until, they give us a reason to believe otherwise. They have not so far.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I've been watching the channel for years, and I don't know. It's entertaining.
Until the data that they start sharing matches other data from other places.
It's true. It's honestly even as bad as until the data that they're showing is internally consistent. Instead of like having occasionally just one bar on a bar graph that is just, what? Like, that makes zero sense, and that kind of thing,
Right.
which they genuinely had some where it was like, here's all the games that we tested these two graphics cards on. This one was beating this one in all of the games, except for this one game where, card B that was losing everything else was 3 times as fast as card A. What? So clearly, bad data, something was broken there, but no, they just put it in a bar graph, stuck it in the video, and shipped it. And it's like, okay.
It's about as useful as Apple's bar graphs.
It's worse. Like, genuinely, that actually was a point that Gamers Nexus made. They're all like, for as much as Linus Tech Tips likes to make fun of Apple for using bad graphs, check out some of these graphs that they've put in their videos. So yeah, it was a whole thing. And it very much comes down to if the source that you are going to for analytical comparisons of your, data for purchasing decisions with tech stuff does not have a published like research rubric, a document that says this is our test methodology and here's what we do to determine our data points and that kind of thing. Even if you don't necessarily agree with their exact methodology, just the fact that they have one written down and published for people to read is usually a pretty good sign.
Yeah.
So, and to be fair, Linus Tech Tips does now have one of those. They didn't a week ago. They do now.
Got it now.
Change in the right direction. They're moving in the right direction. But for the time being, look, they have a lot of videos that are just fun to watch. And they do stupid things. They'll go in there and be like, okay, we went out and we bought the single most powerful fan that we could find. A fan that requires 3-phase power and draws over like 1700 watts or something like that just by itself. It's just a fan. It's like, 400 millimeters or something like that. We're going to stick that on the front of a computer case and see how cold we can get the computer.
Like
by just blowing a fan through it. Like literally a fan that's almost a turbojet, could get lift kind of thing. Yeah, that's the kind of video that they do that I enjoy. I think those are hilarious. And obviously there's no scientific data to be gained from that. That's a stupid idea, listener. Don't do it. They know it's a stupid idea. They say it's a stupid idea, but it's still kind of fun to watch it happen. And yeah, so videos are great entertainment. It's a good entertaining tech channel, and that's all it needs to be. But
Yeah.
They are really like, no, we're going to start producing analytical, data-driven content. And if they want to move in that direction, that's absolutely fine. But it takes more than a few months to do that. So just, yeah, it'll take some time. But yeah, things seem to be kind of dying down right now. We'll see how the ongoing investigation into like employing employee treatment and stuff like that goes, but that's yet to be resolved. So that's that whole thing.
It's interesting because like I haven't watched a ton of his videos because like a lot of it is a lot of like PC tech stuff that I'm just it's just not what I'm into.
Yeah. Fair.
So like I'm more into the consumer tech side of things, not the gaming or analytical type stuff that you like, especially like you guys like more than I do, that's for sure. But
yeah,
I would watch his videos talking about Apple stuff because I know he's definitely not an Apple person. Like he's made that clear over the years. So I would go to his videos just to see if he does actually say something good about Apple products, I'll know it's genuine. At least I thought I would know it was genuine. Now I'm not so sure.
Yeah.
I mean, they might still be genuine if it's a complimentary thing, but all the stuff that he says bad, it's like, are you just saying it's bad because you hate Apple, or is it genuinely bad? You know?
Yes. And that's a very common thread with them is like, they occasionally, you know, like I said, they make fun of Apple's bad graphs and stuff like that in their videos. And look, don't get me wrong, Apple's graphs are bad. Yeah. I talk about it frequently, but just to think that they had any data-driven stuff to say about Apple's devices is kind of the thing that blows my mind. Pretty much, if you are looking for performance metrics of Apple devices, you're not going to find them online as tech tips. You're not going to, that's just not where you would go for that kind of thing. If you're looking for the perspective of a group of people who are primarily PC-based gamers on Apple's products, then yeah, you can check there. Linus himself has like a giant hate boner for Apple, but since his team has gotten a little bit larger over the past few years, he's not the one writing most of those videos anymore. And so that helps because the rest of his team are not nearly as bigoted against Apple as he is. Yeah. So you get a much more kind of measured take, and they still call out bad stuff. Most of the time, the bad stuff that they're calling out is fairly reasonable. Apple has a lot of negative things you can say about them, let's be honest.
Yes.
But when they do say something positive, you know for a fact that's actually a really good thing, because otherwise they wouldn't have called it out. Like, for instance, all of the MacBook Pro's speakers, they're apparently the best in the industry, because the folks at Linus Tech Tips see pretty much every model of laptop that they could possibly ever want to see come through their offices, and every single one of them, they do a comparison of the speakers against a MacBook Pro. And the MacBook Pro is better every single time. So it's like, you do have some stuff like that that is useful information to know. And, you know, they always have positive things to say about like Apple's build quality and the quality of their trackpads and stuff like that, because these are the things at which Apple is objectively good. And so, yeah, if it's an interesting perspective to have on stuff like that. They have perspectives on the usability of various devices and whether or not something looks nice and is easy to use or makes sense when you get it out of the box and that kind of thing. Yeah, it's a good source for that sort of information, much like channels like MKBHD. It's a great source for just like, what's this thing like to live with over the space of a week or two? Not hard data, not analytics on like the cooling performance or anything like that, just kind of general usability. How is this device? And that's fine. You know, they don't need labs and stuff like that to make their videos worthwhile. But I don't know, Linus has got it into his head that this is going to be a big thing. It's going to take them a while to get up to the level of coverage that sites like Tom's Hardware or the Anand Tech or Gamers Nexus or Hardware Unboxed, stuff like that. It's going to take a while to get there. Maybe they will, or maybe they'll decide to go back to being just a pure entertainment channel. We'll see.
They just need to be like the Mr. Beast / Dude Perfect of tech.
That's kind of what they are already. Let's be honest.
I mean, they just need to stick with that, and it'll be fine.
Yeah. It's been working out just fine. Like every time they do, like, oh, we're doing a networking infrastructure upgrade in our office, and it's just like a couple of characters from the company just doing stupid crap and saying dumb stuff and or making mistakes and whatnot on screen. That's hilarious. It's great fun. Like, I don't know why it needs to be anything more than that. So that's all that melodrama and whatnot. And hopefully we never have to talk about YouTube again. Nobody cares about that.
Yeah. No, that's crazy. Like, I heard a little bit about it, but I didn't realize how in depth that was. So that was kind of interesting for me.
Yeah, it was a whole thing.
All right. Well, let's continue on here. We're going to get into all things gaming as well as Gamescom, because that was all this week. Listener, I have to admit, there was so much going on. We may not hit certain points that you may like or whatnot. My suggestion to you is hop on there and look if there's something you're looking for, because, man.
Look, Gamescom is a big convention.
Yes.
And there's a lot of stuff that happened in conjunction with it.
Yes.
But there were some things that were more important than others, and we'll cover those.
Yeah. More important, or just kind of little notes to just kind of be, oh, hey, this is cool or not. So well, let's jump into this here. One thing I did want to kind of bring out, I thought was just interesting. I have to give this one to Atari because they just keep trying. So, so they're coming out later this year with the Atari 2600 Plus. You heard me right. It looks like the original Atari, but will actually play the 2600 and 7800 cartridges. Kind of crazy. Like, I swear they were doing something. They did something, released like a mini Atari before with everything like this.
Yep, they did.
And so now they've got this. And so it's available for pre-order right now. It's $129.99, and it will ship in November of this year. It is a US only, though. They did say that there's an international release coming soon, but I gotta give it to them. Like, I every year there's something like this.
I think it's admirable because I feel like they're putting more effort into first party maintenance of their back catalog of games than like Nintendo is, for instance. Like, from a game history perspective, it's not like Nintendo has really lost all that much just because there are so many rabid Nintendo fans that have all this old stuff, and they're really, really dedicated to digitizing and preserving it,
Yes.
Whereas Atari doesn't necessarily have that much of that fan base, and so they have to do more of the work themselves. But they have been doing it, to some extent at least, and that's kind of nice. Whereas Nintendo, most of the time, would rather sue the pants off of those fans that are preserving their legacy for them, which is, well, it's Nintendo, so I guess I'm not surprised.
Yeah. So what comes with it, I think it's cool. It offers a modern HDMI video out with widescreen support and an included cable. It does have a light up Atari logo, which is cool. It's powered by, it says here, the Rockchip 3128 SoC microprocessor with 256 megabytes of DDR3 RAM, 256 megabytes of eMMC fixed internal storage, and power comes with a bundled USB-C cable.
Yep. It's basically like a Raspberry Pi, in terms of what's powering
and then just a big old, looking like an old school Atari. So
it does come with one game cartridge that has 10 games in one, as it says.
Yeah.
Oh, that is true.
And the games are listed on the cartridge itself. They have, let's see, Adventure, Combat, Dodge 'em, Haunted House, Maze Craze, Missile Command, Real Sports Volleyball, Surround, Video Pinball, and Yar's Revenge.
Okay, but genuinely, Missile Command is one of the best games ever made. So
right,
I'm just gonna, I will die on that hill.
It's a good game.
Oh yeah, no, it's man, games were different back then.
It's true. Yeah, microtransactions weren't a thing. It was nice.
Oh,
It was nice.
Miss those days.
Anyway, unless anyone has anything more to talk about the Atari
Nah.
2600 Plus? No? Okay.
I'll try and not wax too nostalgic here.
Let's move on here. I just wanted to mention this real quick. The Sony's PlayStation Portal Remote Player.
Yeah.
Oh, say that 5 times fast. Sony's PlayStation Portal Remote Player. Anyway, it's launching later this year, and they did put a price on it. It is $199.99.
Yep.
So we talked about this.
We did. It was called Project Q when we talked about it back at the beginning of the summer.
This is an interesting device.
No, it's not. It's a stupid device.
I know. I'm trying.
There's nothing
I'm trying
interesting
to be,
about this. Sony,
Listen.
you absolutely missed the mark.
No, what's interesting about it is the fact that Sony thinks this is
okay.
a good device.
It's like when we talked about it initially, the basic, we were right. Like we were like, oh, maybe there's more to it that we're missing or something. No, it's literally just a remote play device that allows you to stream games from your PS5. However, you can't stream them over the internet. You can only stream them on your local Wi-Fi. Okay?
Which means
you have to be in your house with your PS5.
Which the whole bad part about this is not only are you spending $199, you have to spend $500 to get the thing that it has to connect to.
Yes. It's basically
which is the PlayStation 5.
It's basically just a tiny TV with a DualSense controller attached to it to hook up wirelessly to your PS5. It like we said when we initially talked about it, it's a device that does have a use case, right? If you want to have your PS5 games up in your bedroom and down at the nice TV in your lounge or whatever, then okay, you can use this to play games in your bed, and then you can go down there to play games on your couch, and it costs less than buying a second PlayStation, and that's fine. But like we said in that episode of the podcast, and I think what's hilarious is that like I was gone for that episode of the podcast.
Yes,
but I had a segment like on the YouTube channel that kind of covered my thoughts on it completely separately from what Landon and Wes had to talk about, and completely independently without talking, we came to the conclusion that this is a device that does make sense for a target audience that is pretty reasonably sized if the price is right. And the price we were all saying was like about $100. And so if this thing was $100, then I'd be like, kind of expensive for what it is, really. But I mean, it is an extra DualSense controller along with the ability to stream your games in your bed or on the toilet or whatever. Stuff that your smartphone can already do, but your smartphone doesn't have a screen this size and it doesn't have a DualSense controller built into it. You'd have to use a separate DualSense controller. So like, maybe the price justifies itself at $100, but $200, I'm sorry. No, it's $100 too expensive.
Yep.
It just is. Nobody should buy this thing. It's dumb. Just use your phone.
Yeah, like if they were to make this like maybe $100 more, slap some like a 500 gigs of storage onto it, then it makes sense. Because then you can download the game onto the device and it's a PSP at that point. And even if it's $300, it's worth it at that point. But at $200, and you have to be at home and you have to stream it just is so dumb.
If they made this thing so that it could play PS4 games, they could charge $300 for it and it would still be a good deal. If you could download PS4 games, like stuff that was made for the PS4 is playable on the PS5, but it's an older version, it's not quite as intense as the PS5 is, then yeah, it's a PSP. And it's a great idea. It's a great deal, even at $300. If they made it so that it played PS5 games, you could charge $700 for it, and it would still be a good deal. Like, if you could actually download PS5 games to the thing and play them on a local handheld device like a Steam Deck while you're on the bus or something like that, yeah, $700. People would pay for it, and honestly, I don't know that they would be wrong. Even though, the Steam Deck does cost less than that. Just saying, like a lot less. But the point is, like, I don't even necessarily know that would be a bad thing. But it doesn't play any games. Like, it doesn't even play Android games. You know, like it's an Android-based operating system powering the thing, almost guaranteed, but it doesn't even do that. Like, you can't even play Angry Birds on this thing while you're on the bus. If you're on the bus, unless you literally have a router, a jackery to power the whole thing, and a PlayStation 5 with you, then it's useless. Like, this is the dumbest portable device I have ever seen. And maybe my favorite part, it doesn't have Bluetooth.
Yeah.
It does not have Bluetooth. If you want to use wireless headphones with it, then it does support what's Sony's proprietary
the
wireless
earbud.
I can't remember.
Yeah.
Sony has a proprietary wireless connection for audio devices that only works with their like 2 headsets or whatever. And yeah, you can use those if you want to use wireless. Otherwise, it does have a 3.5mm headphone jack, so you can plug like normal headphones into it. But geez, the frickin' Wheeze, Sony, what the crap is this thing?
Yeah.
Like, you announced this like you were proud of it? Really?
Yeah.
You know, honestly, I know this was announced. I might just recommend something else that I know there was actually quite a few other handhelds that were announced or version 2s of things. So, for example, I know through the weekend, Razer, they did their Razer Kishi V2 Pro.
Yep.
Version 2 on there. I mean, that's mobile phone right there,
yeah.
which you can take on the go anywhere, just connect it and go. I know with mine, I used the original one I had for a while, and sometimes, I'll just throw my phone aside and just plug it in and go, and it's great. And it works with streaming and cloud and all that.
Yep.
I mean,
and it's got the Sony Remote Play app on it.
It does, yes.
If you've got a reasonably big phone, then just getting something like that to put on your phone gives you 90% of the experience of this device when you're at home. And then when you're not at home, you can still use it for stuff. Like, it's still a thing.
True.
Now, I will say, though, if you just give it a month or two, someone will hack this thing to run regular Android and make it useful outside of the home.
No, you know what's going to happen? Someone's going to hack it to run Starfield. That's what's going to happen. That's an listener. If you live under a rock and don't know why that's funny, that's an Xbox only game.
Yep.
So that's what'll happen.
Yep. Which actually, I mean, all they have to do that is get it to run Android, so that then you can stream
Game Pass,
xCloud, and there you go.
Oh, jeez. So there's that. Figured we'd mention that because we talked about it before. And then, you guys, there are so many games coming. There's so many details on all these games coming to whether it's Xbox or finally being released. Obviously, the new Mortal Kombat is coming out. They've had demos on Starfield, Mortal Kombat, the new Age of Empires 4 that finally hit Xbox. Like, it's been out for PC, so they did the controller conversion. Persona 3 Reload? They're doing the stuff for that. The pre-orders, the new Tekken. There is so many games, and hardware and things that are coming out. But the couple points that I wanted to make on my end, I did want to throw this out there. Those of you Blizzard fans, I guess ex-Blizzard fan Caleb over here probably don't care.
Left.
I found this interesting. World of Warcraft in classic mode now has a hardcore mode. It has a hardcore, and apparently this is a huge thing. I kind of dug into this so I never found hardcore fun in any kind of video game. Basically, what that means is you start a character in, say, an MMO or action adventure or something, and when you die, you're dead. It's game over. That's it. That character's done. You can't play it anymore. There is no like, oh, I saved, so I'm going to go back. No, it's gone. Nope. And then you have to restart, and everything you had lost, restart. And apparently there's a big fan base for this. And I was looking at Blizzard released some of these things that have come out, and apparently they're like, what was it? The first 48 hours, there was 90,000 deaths. Like, people just dying all over, restarting. And apparently this is like a big thing. And I don't know. It's interesting to me because this is something that's never happened in WoW. What they would do before is the hardcore, it wasn't a Blizzard ran thing. It was these private servers that would run it, but basically if you died, they would have a log of you dying, and if you got onto a character that you had already died on, they would, in a sense, just ban you. Like, oh, you died. And so, it's such an interesting niche. I find it cool. It's just a niche that I'm like, wow, there's people that have that tenacity to do that.
That's like, listen, listener, I just want to let you in on a secret. If you're starting to get bored of your character in the game, you can just start another one. Like, you don't have to have the anxiety of losing all of your crap be a part of that.
Oh, dude.
Just saying.
It's true, but there's such a fan base for it. It's kind of crazy.
I know. Well, it's like back in the day, all the people that were like on the Diablo 2 servers playing hardcore characters and stuff like that. And you'd always see them. They line up in the bottom of your battle.net window while you were logging into the game or chatting or whatever. Mm-hmm. And I was always like, I just can't relate to you folks. Can't. It's like, especially the number of them that, had obviously finished the game, had like super high level gear and stuff like that. And then they were just like running the cow level over and over and over again. And I was like, I just don't get it. It's like, you're just waiting to die, like I'm just here until I die and lose this thing that is the culmination of literally like probably 150 to 200 hours worth of effort on my part. And I'm like, I don't have any interest in doing that at all.
I will say, so playing Diablo 4, actually I did do a hardcore character in Diablo 3, but that was just kind of to get an achievement. And I was like, hey, I'm done. I'm never playing this again. But in Diablo 4, I started a hardcore character, and I was like, okay, I want to try this out and really get into this. And it does change the game, because I'm not like, oh, if I don't accidentally, jump out of this fire, whatever. Oh, I don't want to set that trap off because that will instantly just kill me. Yeah. And it's crazy because like you see a boss and you really have to think, okay, is my resistance is good for this? Yeah. Like, and if you do see the butcher, you just run. Like, that's all it is. You just run. There is no, I'm going to see if I can tank this guy.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. And like, I probably would not have quite so lackadaisically wandered into who was the second chapter boss, like final boss in Diablo 2?
Not a Duriel.
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 Like the big old like fat crab dude, whatever he was. Anyways, like that guy, the first time that I played through Diablo 2, I was playing with a friend who had played the game before. I had not. He was a necromancer and I was a paladin. And it's like you said, having your resistances, in the case of a paladin, having your auras appropriately selected for fighting that boss. I did not have like any kind of poison resistance or anything like that. And this dude and I'm supposed to be the tank. Right, I'm the paladin. I'm supposed to be the one taking the heat so that the necromancer can do the damage from the distance. And basically what we ended up doing was the necromancer, we would walk into there, drop town portals. I would run up to the boss, die, respawn, and then run back in. And then the necromancer would jump out through my portal so that it wouldn't close behind him. And then I'd use his portal and he'd hop in, do damage for like 10 seconds. I would die. He'd jump out. I'd respawn back in, run in. He'd do damage for 10 seconds. And we did that for probably 30 minutes because he couldn't stand up to the guy. I couldn't stand up to the guy. And I literally had like probably 75 corpses just stacked up on the floor around where this guy was. And I did not know which one had my actual gear on it. It took me 5 minutes of going through all these dead bodies to find the first one that had my armor and weapons and stuff. Anyways, I would not have memories like that if I had tried to play this game hardcore.
No, man.
I feel like those memories are better than the memory of me making one mistake and then accidentally losing like 12 hours of progress in the game or something like that and feeling like absolute crap for who knows how long. That's how you rage quit games, and I probably never would have finished Diablo 2 if I tried. So
Seriously.
I definitely cannot relate to this, but I'm happy it exists for the masochists out there that really want to get into it.
I mean, they are the nicest people. I will say that. They really are. Like, it's crazy, but I have to give it to them. I mean, I was like, man, I want to see how far I can get in Classic. And then I started really remembering how bad I hate Murlocs in that game. I probably die at like level 2. Anyway. So that was one thing I wanted to note on there. Couple just quick things. Like, obviously the big heavy hitters for the rest of the year was there. And if you want to take a look at, if you're waiting for a game, it most likely has been there if you're expecting it. Like Starfield, like Mortal Kombat, like, I mean, all the above. So Gamescom, type it into YouTube, take a look, because there's going to be some definite things. There is a little bit we're going to talk about on Baldur's Gate, which we'll get to in just a minute, because that's another big one we'll probably talk about. So let's go ahead and move on. Looks like, Landon, here you got some Qualcomm G Series chips.
Yes. Now, I don't know if this was talked about at Gamescom, but it was definitely in association with Gamescom, because Qualcomm's G series of chips have been their gaming device chips.
Yes.
And they announced some new ones and an upgraded one. So the new ones, they've got the G1 and the G2, and then they've got a new G3 that, okay. Qualcomm really needs to fix their naming. But this one's called the G3X Gen 2.
Oh, gosh. Pro. Put Pro at the end of that. Just
I mean, may as well.
Pro.
I mean,
it's Pro Max.
Yeah.
Pro Max.
Anyway, so some of the specs on these. So these are going to be products that go into your handheld gaming devices, similar to like a Steam Deck, although Steam Deck uses an AMD processor rather than a Qualcomm processor. But similar type product. So the G1 is something that'll be more of like your at-home, like cloud gaming type product. It's not necessarily something like, well, we'll get into it. So the G1 has the Qualcomm Cryo 8-core CPU on it and an Adreno A11 GPU. And from what I understand, I've seen somewhere that it gets pretty good battery life when gaming, but who knows? Obviously, these haven't been tested thoroughly yet. The G2 actually has more connectivity on it. It's got 5G and Wi-Fi 6 and 6E on it. And it's got the same Cryo 8-core CPU, but it's got an Adreno A21 GPU. And then, like I said, the Snapdragon X62 5G modem, which gives it that connectivity and stuff. So this is going to be something that you could potentially see in like a gaming phone. Similar to like the Asus phones or, something like that.
Right.
And then the Snapdragon G3 X Gen 2, it's got the same Cryo 8-core CPU and Adreno A32 GPU that is saying it's everything together is 30% faster than the Gen 1 G3 processor, and it's got faster Wi-Fi 7 on it, is what they're claiming. I don't know. I didn't know that was a thing yet.
Oh.
And 5G and millimeter wave. So it's just a little bit higher.
Wow.
Basically, the main differences between these things is the GPU built in are going to be the faster ones on the higher end processor, and then obviously the better connectivity and stuff like that. But these were announced this past week. So if you're looking into different devices, this is now potentially going to be in some sort of gaming handheld device that you might be looking for in the next year. Because obviously they're not in devices yet, but they will be as time goes on. So there you go. That's what Qualcomm had to do with the gaming sphere of things this week.
Nice. All right, let's move to the next thing. Well, Caleb, Baldur's Gate 3 sparks developer outrage.
Oh, man. So I get all of the controversial stuff.
Well, I mean,
today.
I figure we talk about all the Baldur's Gate because obviously,
yes.
I'm assuming you're going, yeah, go ahead.
So Baldur's Gate had a 1.0 release. We mentioned before it was released that was going to be happening a couple of weeks ago.
Yep.
Yeah, Baldur's Gate came out officially, and turns out it's probably the single most ambitious role-playing game ever. And I mean that. Like,
how many hours just for the main quest? I can't remember what they said. Wasn't it like 80?
200?
Just the main quest?
Just the main quest if you're doing... Okay, so if by main quest you mean all of your party's main quests, right? So, like, you have a party in the game, and if you are doing the quests for all of your party members and stuff like that, then yeah, it's supposed to be something like 180 to 100 hours or something. The entire game itself, if you complete the whole thing, is like JRPGs have a history of being gigantic in scope and just having so much content. And JRPGs can run up into the 300, 400, 500 hour range to just complete everything. Apparently Baldur's Gate is supposed to be somewhere in the order of about 700. So it is just ridiculous in scope. And it has just been pretty much universally positively received by everybody in the community, in that, the story is great. The characters are really good. The voice acting is absolutely stellar. Character creator is outstanding. It gives you all of the customization that you would expect from sitting down to play a pen and paper RPG like Dungeons and Dragons. I mean, the game is based off of Dungeons and Dragons, obviously. It's a Baldur's Gate game, right? It's a Wizards of the Coast officially licensed whatever. But it genuinely, unlike previous Baldur's Gate games, it's not like D&D Light or D&D for babies or whatever. This is just, it's full-on 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons as a video game. And no DM, right? Like... The game is the Dungeon Master, but it actually works really well. And yeah, it's the whole thing. Everybody's impressed with the scope of it. Everybody's impressed with how good the story is and how great the characters are. The fact that the game feels finished right as it was released. Like, sure, there's bugs, but nothing like the unfinished buggy crap we've been getting from pretty much every large AAA studio over the past 5 years, especially when you look at like Cyberpunk and stuff like that. It's just it's finished. The game is done when they released it, which is really nice. Now, to be fair, Baldur's Gate 3 has been in early access for 2 years at this point or something like that. So they had a lot of time to iron out all of the issues and that kind of thing. But the fact that they did that is really nice. Thanks, Larian. So I think it's fair to say that anybody who was paying attention to Divinity Original Sin 2 and the early access development of Baldur's Gate 3 was not surprised by the high quality final product that we got when it officially launched. However, turns out there were a lot of people who weren't paying attention to those things and were caught completely off guard by the fact that Baldur's Gate 3 was an incredible piece of game development and set a new standard for RPGs in the PC game space, especially. Now, some of those people who were caught off guard were developers from other large AAA development studios. And a lot of them, a couple of weeks ago, took to Twitter to bemoan at how horrible it is that Larian would consider releasing such a game and how essentially players shouldn't expect this kind of thing. It's unreasonable for players to expect a game this good. Lower your expectations. It's impossible for this sort of thing to be developed regularly, and so on and so forth. I would just like to point out that nobody from Software was complaining about it. The developers of Elden Ring, who just last year set a new standard for a whole genre of video games. And nobody from Nintendo was on there whining about how this makes, Tears of the Kingdom look horrible or anything like that, because it doesn't. These games are also setting a very high standard for AAA game development studios. So none of the people from studios that are actually making good games came out to whine about how Baldur's Gate was too good and players shouldn't expect anything like that. There was a lot of community backlash against this, and I do want to say that there is some validity to the things that these developers were saying. Some of them were just pointing out that, yes, Baldur's Gate 3 is an excellent game. Yes, it does set a new standard, but players shouldn't be expecting every new game to set a new standard for high-quality game development. That's true. Not every game can be better than every other game before it.
Right.
Sometimes you get lucky, but just because we're just now finally getting something that makes The Witcher 3 look like it's child's play, over 10 or almost 10 years later, like after The Witcher 3 was released, it takes a while for these like new standards in a particular genre of game to be beaten. And that's fine. But the developers who are like, so lower your expectations to all of the AAA stuff. No, you are misreading the room. Everybody is happy with this because it is a good game, but also because it's not the same pile of recycled crap that AAA game developers have been giving us for the past decade. We are happy with this game because it set a new standard, yes, but we're honestly just happy with anything that isn't crap. It doesn't even have to set a new standard. Like, let's be honest, Breath of the Wild did set a new standard for open world RPGs.
Mm-hmm.
Tears of the Kingdom didn't necessarily set a new standard. It just kind of took what Breath of the Wild did really, really well and just built on it a little bit. So that's fine. Like, nobody's complaining about Tears of the Kingdom, right? Like, that's okay. If you want to take what the current standard is and then make something that's just equivalent to it, not necessarily better, doesn't have to be groundbreaking, just something that's as good as Baldur's Gate 3, that's fine. It means you have to release a product that actually works on day one. So that's a key point. It means you have to release a product that feels original. That's also kind of big, right? Like, has an original story to tell or something,
Yes.
So, yeah, like, I don't know. There was a lot of whole back and forth between like some groups of people online about this. And I think at the end of the day, continue to be a listener. As a gamer, you should continue to expect high quality entertainment. Video games have the capability to deliver some really incredible experiences unmatched by any other form of entertainment. That is their strength, and we should expect them to strive for that. They don't necessarily have to be the best game ever every single time, but they should be trying.
Yes.
And so much of the AAA space these days, they're not trying at all. They have a checklist of concepts that they know sell, and they're just regurgitating like literal garbage into those concepts over and over and over and over again. As much as I really enjoyed the setting of Horizon Zero Dawn, I do recognize that in terms of gameplay, it wasn't bad, but it was basically just Far Cry. Like, I recognize that.
Yeah.
It was Tomb Raider crossed with Far Cry. That was it. There was nothing great happening there. Fun setting, decent characters, pretty good story.
Yeah.
The game was okay, but it was not pushing the boundaries of what was possible. It was no Legend of Zelda, Breath of the Wild, which came out pretty much the exact same time. Turns out, sold way better.
Turns out, yeah.
Don't know why. Couldn't tell you. So, I don't know. Continue to expect wonderful things from your games and be discerning purchasers of games, listener. You don't have to buy every single game. Like, I'm sorry, Starfield is about to come out, and I'm going to go ahead and say it. You wait until it's out. You wait until you can see some people playing that game, and then you decide whether or not that game from Bethesda is going to be worth as much as Baldur's Gate 3. Because I have a very strong suspicion that it won't be. And maybe don't buy it. Like, is Baldur's Gate 3 not going to be quite as pretty? Yeah, I guess not. So if visual appeal is the only thing that matters to you, then I suppose buy Starfield instead. But if that is the only thing that matters to you, James Cameron has some movies he would like to show you. They star blue aliens, and they're the most visually impressive thing that you can see on a big screen. I don't know why you're even playing video games. So, yeah, I don't know. There's a lot to unpack there, but I think the key is just continue to expect high quality games, listener. Don't back down. Don't let the developers that are getting upset about players actually wanting high quality entertainment. Don't let them talk you into submission. It's not real.
No, I agree with that. And I think with that rage, there's such, I'd like to add to it, like, I don't know, with this medium we're in, it should just be fun. It should be a fun hobby we all have to be able to talk and enjoy these worlds and the outrage and stuff that's been happening. There's even more outrage with it on, say, we'll even go into the console war thing, like, even because it's not coming to Xbox till way later, so there's this big thing of, well, the Series S is holding it back when they announced that it's coming. It's just, hey, obviously we don't have as many what do they call it, teraflops. We'll just use their word, teraflops, to make it split screen or whatever. But it's
well, yeah, they don't have as much power to work with on the console. It is technically possible to do it. It's just going to require a lot of optimization to make 700 hours of this game work on the Series S. So, give them some time. It's a much smaller team at Larian than you probably are thinking. Like, I think that's the key everybody is overlooking here, is that Larian is not really a AAA developer. No. Like, Larian came from Kickstarter. Like, they were a developer in the traditional sense, and then they got fired because their games were kind of sucking and they weren't selling very well. And so they last-ditch attempt took their IP, their one IP that they owned, Divinity, to Kickstarter and managed to turn that into success, and enough success that everybody was like, well, yeah, if you want somebody to make a Dungeons & Dragons-based video game, it's them. Like, they've already proved twice they can do it very, very well. So, like, but it's not a huge development team. This is not a AAA team spending literally like tens of millions of dollars on the development of this game. A lot smaller scale than that. So, yeah, it's going to take them a minute to get it ready for the Series S. But the fact of the matter is they released it on PC and on PlayStation 5 with no game-breaking bugs. 0. So, I'm sorry, Bethesda. You have a much bigger team and a much bigger budget. That's the standard for Starfield. Right. Is that you release it on the supported platforms with no game-breaking bugs.
Yeah, we'll see.
We'll see if they pull that off.
We'll see. I mean, and like, to add to it, like, you should enjoy this. Shouldn't be fighting, but anyway, let's go ahead and let's move on. Unless we have anything more. Landon, do you have anything to comment on the Baldur's Gate developer outrage?
No.
I just figured, you don't have strong opinions on the world of Faerun.
Yeah.
Nope.
Fair enough. Okay. Let's move to the next bullet point here. Caleb, you want to talk about AMD Radeon.
Oh, yes. This was probably the most positive thing that came out of Gamescom, I think. So, AMD announced some details and a launch date for the Radeon RX 7700 XT and the RX 7800 XT. Finally, filling out the middle of the 7000 series lineup for Radeon cards. Up to this point, we had their very high-end stuff, which was like, the 7900 XT and the 7900 XTX, and their lower-end stuff like the 7600 XT and 7500 non-XT. I don't think that one had an XT on it. Anyways, we had the low-end stuff, we had the high-end stuff. Now we're finally getting the middle stuff. What's, I think, salient about this stuff is that in terms of pricing, the 7700 XT is launching for $450 and the 7800 XT is going to be $500, which is actually down a little bit from their equivalent cards from last generation, which is nice. And if you look at the pricing, that means that they're stacking up against stuff like the 4060 Ti and the 4070, right? They're not like super high-end NVIDIA cards that they're trying to fight. Obviously, they're kind of the middle of NVIDIA's range. And in terms of pure rasterized performance, they curb stomp the NVIDIA cards in their price class. And even in ray tracing, it looks like they may beat some of NVIDIA's cards, which has not been the case for price competitive AMD cards up to this point. It is worth noting, all of the numbers that we are talking about came from AMD. So, grain of salt, pound of salt, in fact, lots of salt. Take it as it is.
They're about as useful as Linus Tech Tips tests on these products.
It right there. Ooh, they contracted out their benchmarking to the LTT labs, and don't take any of it seriously. Some of the graphs looked really dumb. Anyways, but no, it's basically just nice to see some mid-range cards that are mid-range prices, like that are doing well from AMD, that are actually like beating NVIDIA cards and stuff like that. So there's going to be going for sale later. What did they say? End of September? No, I think it was October, like beginning of October. Those will be going for sale. So nice to see. Alongside that, there are going to be, actually, it is end of September. When is Starfield launching?
So early access is, I think, is September 1st.
Yeah.
So if you pre-order but the actual like Steam. Okay, actual release date I think is the 7th. Sorry.
Is it the 7th? Oh, okay.
It's like this. You know what? Let me bring it up. Steam.
Well, they're launching alongside Starfield. In fact, if you buy a 7700 XT or a 7800 XT, which I believe are open for pre-orders right now, you get a copy of Starfield with them. So that's another thing to keep in mind with these. Alongside those, they're launching their new version of Fidelity Super Resolution, which is going to include an analog for NVIDIA's frame generation, their DLSS frame generation that uses AI to programmatically generate additional frames for the game and insert them into the thing to try and smooth it out and give you more consistent frame rates. As to whether or not that's going to work as well as DLSS 3.0 has been working, it's just hard to say. We haven't seen the thing in action yet at this point, and, who knows. But the fact of the matter is it's not just supported on AMD's cards, and it's not only supported on their latest stuff like DLSS is. So, that's... Even if it's not as good as NVIDIA's version, as long as it works pretty well, it's still quite nice to see. So thanks, AMD, for making Fidelity Super Resolution available to everyone. So
the release date is 9/5, so the 5th of September.
Okay. Dang.
But then it's the 1st for the early access.
Well, yeah, so apparently the new Radeon cards are going to be launching here in about a week and a half. That is faster than I thought. I thought it was later. Anyways. So yeah, that's AMD stuff. It's good stuff. Like, we go into the tech specs of the GPUs and that kind of thing, but honestly, the numbers for that don't really mean anything until you can get actual in-the-field testing. And the only in-the-field testing data that we have right now was provided by AMD in their performance metrics in their announcement. So kind of don't trust that data at this point. But honestly, the fact that these cards are not hilariously overpriced is a win regardless of how they perform. So we'll just have to see whether or not their claims match up with what the price is.
Gotcha. Okay. All right, well, let's keep talking these graphics cards. Other company, Nvidia, your favorite.
Yeah. So Nvidia didn't want to be left out of announcing stuff at Gamescom, so they announced DLSS 4. Oh, wait, no, just kidding. It's 3.5. What does DLSS 3.5 mean? It means we wanted to announce something at Gamescom because AMD was going to have a presence there, but we didn't actually have anything super worthwhile to announce. What this is DLSS 3.0, except it is adding their ray reconstruction technique to it, which is another AI enhancement to DLSS that makes the lighting more better. Like, it's not... I don't know exactly what to think about this. It is essentially taking unused hardware on all of NVIDIA's GPUs since the 20 series. So not counting the 16 series, right? So the 20 series, the 30 series, and the 40 series all have tensor cores on them. And the tensor cores are really great for AI workloads and stuff that people who are not gamers do, right? Scientific workloads, number crunching, that kind of thing. But when you're playing a video game and you're just doing graphics rendering, the tensor cores don't really do anything. And what they're doing is they are using the tensor cores to run AI tech to essentially smooth out the ray trace path of the lighting in the game, which is moving a little bit of burden off of the RT cores so that they can run a little bit faster. The idea is that this is going to be just a driver update for all of their 20 series and later GPUs that will enable this ray reconstruction technology that will allow the tensor cores to be doing a little bit of more work to actually help DLSS produce more frames at higher qualities. So that's what it is. And the fact that it's a free driver update and they're not like charging extra and they're not restricting it artificially to only the 40 series or something like that means that I don't really have a problem with this. This is fine, right? Thanks, NVIDIA, for actually doing something semi-reasonable for your customers. Now, if you could, stop overpricing your graphics cards, please.
Yes, please.
Just
Yep.
So that's that.
Oh, so much fun there. Graphics cards. Yikes.
He's a party.
Anyway, well, that was pretty much all the big points that we wanted to talk about at Gamescom that happened on there. I did want to mention something that I hadn't mentioned, which I think is probably something in case someone didn't know this or still is on an Xbox 360. Microsoft is shutting down the 360 store. So it's just the store they're shutting down. They're looking at actually doing that in early July 2024. So you can't buy any games. So, but you could still buy the 360 games on an Xbox One or later. So that's what that is. So you'll still be able to do that, but there will be some games that weren't carried over to the backwards compatibility program that are only on the Xbox 360. So, for example, the big one that everyone's talking about is that Simpsons arcade game. Actually, it was made for the 360, I think, for the Simpsons movie that was coming out.
Oh, yeah.
They had the license for it, but then when Xbox One came out, it was never carried over because they couldn't get the license and everything. So a lot of people still have the 360 for games like that. Maybe not just that game. But now that they're shutting it down, it's not going to move forward. They haven't commented on games like that just yet on how you would be able to access that or if you're going to lose it. So maybe something to heads up if you have something like that. So
fair enough.
Figured I'd point that out. So I think that's pretty much gaming there that we're going to talk about. We're going to move on over to some Doom news. I mean, both work. Let's be real.
Doom guy on his way to a party. All right.
Right before he shoots his gun.
That's it. Got to make all the demons aware of his presence. And
yeah, I mean,
then he can take care of them. It's the old adage that in Dark Souls, you're trapped in a room with a bunch of monsters. In Doom, the monsters are trapped in a room with you.
Right.
Okay, Doom modders. Man, this one's good. We've been building up to this, listener. You didn't realize, but we have been building up to this for a while.
I don't think we realized it either.
No, I had no idea. Several years ago, we talked about how somebody had gotten Doom running on what was it? I'm going to have to just double check. The Raspberry Pi Pico RP2040. Okay. So that is a single board computer, SBC, that has 264 kilobytes of RAM and is flipping tiny. Like, it's like thumbnail sized, okay? This entire computer. It's ridiculously small. And the guy got it running on that, even though the original game was designed to run on 4 megabytes of RAM, and he got it running on 264 kilobytes of RAM, okay? So this is seriously impressive. We reported on that, and then we reported last year, I believe it was, or maybe might have been the year before. Hard to remember. It all kind of blends together. A guy who used that particular single board computer to get the game running on a Lego brick, right? He got it running on one of the slope tiles as the display for the thing, and then a later addition to that project managed to build the entire thing that was powering it and the controls for it and everything into a very small clump of Lego bricks that you could play the entire game just by touching a couple of touch-sensitive studs on the Legos and viewing the thing on this little itty-bitty OLED display on one of the slanted tiles. Now, another guy has taken all of that work and made a keycap, okay? So this is a keycap for a mechanical keyboard that is, it's approximately the size of like a standard sized backspace key, right? So you could just take your backspace key off of your keyboard, assuming you don't have like a weird sized keyboard, and stick this thing onto it, right? It's just, it's a keycap that has a Raspberry Pi Pico in it and a low res but full color OLED display. Okay? All of it on a resin 3D printed keycap that the whole thing, it runs the game, right? So you can just stick it on your keyboard and let it sit there and run the demo if you really want to. But you can also just take your keyboard with a USB-C cable and plug it into the back of the keycap and then use the keyboard that the keycap is on to play the game on your keycap, completely self-contained. So, assuming that your keyboard is battery powered, I suppose.
Right.
But yeah, it's amazing. I just, I can't. It's a keycap. You can play Doom on it.
I love it. I've never really been into the whole mechanical keyboard space. I do understand it. There are some that I do like, but this would be the potential reason why I would potentially, do it. Buy a mechanical keyboard and then just to have this. That's amazing.
Yep. So yeah, Doom modders, they're the best. Keep it up, guys. Y'all rock.
Oh, it's amazing. I'm watching the thing right now. That's wow. That's amazing. Yep.
So good. So good.
Yeah, listener, do yourself a favor and just take a look. Take a look at any of those things that we've mentioned, really. Like,
yes.
Oh, what was it? The tractor one. Like,
oh yeah, got it running on a John Deere.
Got it on a John Deere tractor. Pregnancy test, potatoes.
So good.
It's crazy.
It's so good.
Well, I think that's everything we wanted to talk about today, unless Landon has one more thing.
Oh, that's where we wanted the air horn.
Yes,
there it is.
That's where the air horn comes in.
How funny it would be if all of a sudden he starts firing the shotgun.
If he accidentally hit the shotgun. That would be amazing.
I've got one more thing of Doom news. No. Now, that would have been
epic.
No, this is not Doom news in the sense that it's Doom, but I mean, this is kind of a signs of the times, I guess you could say, of Doom.
Oh, good.
So Netflix has a gaming studio, as we all know. And I would say in love, but, that's not necessarily the case. Although, you might love this. So, Netflix has announced a new stories feature. Now, this is not your traditional, like, Instagram stories or Facebook story or, like, those type of things where it's something that you post online and then it goes away after 24 hours. No, not that. This is something entirely different. This is a set of interactive narrative games that go along with different shows that are on Netflix. Well, now you might say, okay, that's not a bad thing because there's sometimes, there are a lot of TV shows or movies made based off of games. Why can't we have a game made based off of a TV show or a movie? Makes sense.
I think they've had this before. What was it? That Minecraft thing that they did long time ago. They like made a story and then actually you can interact with it. Like it is that, like Caleb said, it was a choose your own adventure thing. I remember.
Yeah, like choose your own adventure books, guys. Like, come on.
Well,
this
is not quite that. I mean, they do have choose your own adventure TV shows. I've done those. Those are fun. This is a game, like a full on game that you can play, and they're gonna launch these games with 3 different shows. The first one is set to debut on September 19th, 3 days prior to the release of this show's 5th season. Now, the show that this first one is based off of is Love is Blind.
Wait, what?
Yep.
What?
Okay.
Now I don't know exactly what the game is going to be like. I would imagine maybe a sim type game where you
I
are
guess
participating in some way of, or another, the Love is Blind scenario where I don't know, but that will be available on September 19th, prior to this next season of Love is Blind coming out on Netflix.
Okay.
So if you, listener, are really into that show, this game might just be for you.
Interesting.
So
I guess.
now, the other shows that they will be coming out with these type of games to go along with are Money Heist and Virgin River. So, and I would imagine that those games will come out alongside the new seasons of those shows coming out. I don't know when those are going to come out, but probably similar to how this one is coming out. But there you go. If you are a really big fan of the show Love is Blind, now there's a game for you to go play.
Okay.
So there you go. That's my one more thing for this week.
Random. Okay.
Netflix. Okay. Okay. Yep. I don't even know how to end it after that. It's just,
what on earth?
I guess we'll see more of that later. Who knows?
You're welcome.
Anywho, since that's the last thing, dear listener, we appreciate you listening. If you want to get a hold of us or give us more information on Netflix stories, I guess, I mean, you can do that. If you actually watch those shows, drop us a line on our social media platforms, as well as callingallplatforms.com. If you'd like to see any videos that we've posted on YouTube, you can at Calling All Platforms there. All right, dear listener, have a good week.
Bye-bye.
See ya.
Calling All Platforms is a production of Supporter Sound Studios. To learn more about how you can support the podcast, go to www.patreon.com/callingallplatforms.
Well, should we
Shall
do this
we?
thing?
Is everybody recording?
I am.
That's the big question.
Uh-huh.
Everyone got all their wiggles and whatever's out.
No, never.
Landon's got to do his microphone little.
Oh.
Then I know.
Oh
no. Not too hard, I guess. I don't know.
There we go.
There it is.
I just got to hold the actual microphone and not just. I held
Breaks it.
I held the shock mount
right.
instead of the microphone. That obviously.
All right, listen here, Gorilla. Let's start calling you Magilla here.
Oh man, I think we need the chunk. Oh no, is the sound like on the soundboard or something?
Seriously.
Good thing I'm recording.
Oh
Oh,
and you
man.
thought it was going to be uneventful today, right there. Just
Ooh. Oh.
just pulls it right out.
Oh, I need to gather myself now. Jeez Louise. Oh,
Yeah.
man.
We were ready to record.
Oh.
Oh, man.
You know, that's one of those things that I wish if we ever had video recording, that would have been perfect. Just
That would have been great.
right.
Honestly, the audio is good enough. That was just such a
Yeah, you just hear a crunch.
shukunk. Oh no! Oh man!
All right. Well,
Thing is
are
quicker.
Are you good, Landon?
Yeah.
Okay.
Next time, grab the microphone and pull. Don't grab the shock mount and pull.
That. Oh my goodness.
Oh, okay. Deep breaths. Okay. Oh man.